We have finished the first work of the book of Ketuvim, the 150 chapters of the book of Tehillim, and we move to another book, the book of Mishlei. The first book of the book of Ketuvim are the Tehillim of David, centerpiece, center author of the book. How many of them exactly he authored are good questions. And here it is his son's turn, Mishlei Shlomo ben David Melech Yisrael. The Proverbs, the parables of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. Lada'at chokhmah umusar lahavin imrei vina. What is the purpose of this book? It is for people to learn wisdom and to learn discipline, to understand words of bina, of discernment. Lakachat musar haskel tzedek umishpat umesharim, for acquiring the musar haskel musar, the discipline, in order to have seichel, in order to have sort of a wisdom and success, and also righteousness, justice, and beisharim from the word yashar. So we're going to teach you all sorts of different types of ideas and thoughts, aphorisms, parables, so that you will be able to gain success in this world. Continuing pasuk dal, latet lafitaim orma Lena'ar dat u mizima, to help the simple become a little shrewder, and to help the young with knowledge and foresight. Yishma chacham ve'yosef lekach v'navon tachbulot yikneh. So not only for the simple and not only for the young is this a book for, but this book is also for, it says in Pasuk, for the wise. The wise man will hear that and gain greater wisdom. The discerning man will learn and become more discerning, will become sharper in his or her knowledge. Lahavin mashal u'militza divrei chachamim v'chidotam. And it will help us to understand proverbs and parables. It will help us to understand the words of the wise and the riddles of the wise, the things that are not difficult to understand, the cryptic things that perhaps a little bit more knowledge and a greater understanding, some more analytical skills, as well as other things will help us. And here we have one of the more famous phrases in the book, Yirat Adonai Reshit dat chachma umusar evalim bazu. So we have a phrase that we know slightly different, but that the Yirat Hashem is Reshit Chochma, working off this verse. The fear of God is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and discipline. So if you want to have wisdom, so part of what's understanding here is that you have to start from a place of godliness, a place of a fear of God. Perhaps part of that is if you understand that there is God, if you understand there's a greater world and you are just a small part of that greater world, you'll know that you can learn from others. The emptier you are of yourself, the more place there is for others to come and to teach, for you to learn, to fill it with wisdom. So he's saying part of this is the fear of God is the beginning of knowledge. Let's continue. Shema beni musar avicha v'al titosh torat imecha. My son, listen to the discipline of your father, and don't ignore the instruction of your mother. I believe it was Ramban Nachmanides in a letter to his children who started with this verse and questions as to what's the difference. Musar, is that more of the musar of your father is more fire and brimstone, a little bit more discipline, and the mother's instruction is different, not clear, but in a world in which the beginning of the book seems to be in the male, and so much of it is about to teach the men. We're going to see in this book a lot of ideas of female wisdom, a lot of personification of chokhmah, we'll see in a second, which means wisdom, sort of in a sense, almost like the Greek idea, the personification of wisdom, the Greek idea of Sophia. Let's continue. Ki livyat chen heim l'roshecha v'anakim legargerotecha, because they are the graceful wreath upon your head, a necklace about your throat. Presumably what this refers to is the wisdom that you get from your parents. That's what you walk around with in life. Now, some reject that and go in a different way, but even if you're rejecting your parents and you're going a different way, you're still identifying based upon your parents. You're just rejecting it, as opposed to using that as your wisdom. Either you're saying, I'm going to follow my parents, or I'm going to wholly reject and go in a different fashion. Most of us do, somewhere in the middle. But the wisdom that you have gotten, the instruction from your mother, the discipline from your father, those in many ways present to the person who you are and where your starting point is. B'ni, im yifatucha chataim al tavo, just read Pasuk Yud Aleph as well. Im yomru lecha itanu ne'erva ladam mitzpina lenaki chinam. My son, if sinners enticed you, right? Pitoy is to entice to, then don't give in. Don't go there. If they say, come with us, okay, and we're going to lie and wait until we're going to, attack the innocent, right? He says, don't go. In verse 12, Pasuk Yud Bet, Nivlaim kishol chayim utmimim kiyor bor, like Shaol, let us swallow them alive whole, like those who go down into the pit, right? That's what they're saying to you. They're saying to you, now's the chance. Let's commit some fraud. Let's take advantage of the weak. Let's do what we can. Don't do it. Kolhon yakar nimsa nimle vatenu shalal. They continue, we're going to obtain every precious treasure. We'll fill our homes with loot by taking advantage of of those who have nobody to protect them, the naive, the foolish. Goralcha, we're in 14 Yudal, tapil betochenu kisechad yelechulanu. Throw in your lot with us. We shall all have a common purse. We're all going to be in it together, taking advantage. Now, of course, you should be a little suspect because maybe they'll take advantage of you. But what does it say if you are brought into a potentially bad way of making money, a potentially bad way, a fraudulent behavior, an evil thing to do? Shlomo says, B'ni, al telech b'derech itam, mina raglecha min tivotam. My son, don't set out with them. Don't go on their ways. Keep your feet from their path. And we had this also back in the book of Tehillim, where David at times asked God, help him. It's hard to avoid the sinners. It's hard to avoid their influence is strong. Their desire for violence is strong. And here too, in the beginning of this book, Shlomo is offering wisdom and saying, don't set out with them. Keep your feet away from them. It's easy. Who is this advice going to? Is it Shlomo to his son Rechavam, like David gave to Shlomo at the end of David's life? We don't see that. Is it just generally? We see the word B'ni. It's hard to, it's easier to think of it as the wisdom of Shlomo for his son, but obviously, in the same way we said, Tehillim is the book of every person, every man, every woman who is calling out to God, who wants a closer relation, who wants to feel God, who wants to have inspiration, who wants to have greater thanks and appreciation in our life. So this book too, the wisdom may have been initially for his son, who fails a very early test in his career, and the temple gets separated. I should say the temple, the kingdom of Israel is separated, right, very early on in the kingdom of Rechavam, the son of Shlomo. Perhaps Rechavam doesn't listen to his father. He goes into this bad path, the path of his young advisors who tell him to just increase taxes and be stronger and harsher and more difficult than his father, which the people don't want. Don't do that, he says, continuing verse 16, Ki ragleim laraya rutsu vimaharu lishpoch dam, because their feet run to evil, they hurry to shed blood. Kichina mizora harashet be'enei kol ba'al kanaf, in the eyes of every winged creature, the outspread net means nothing. Vehem l'damam ye'erovu yitzbenu l'nafshotam, but they lie in ambush for their own blood. They lie in wait for their own lives, right? So everybody, in a sense, is doing this. They're waiting to attack the prey. Cain or chot kol botsea Batza and nefesh be'alav yikach. That is the fate of all who pursue unjust gains. It takes the life of its possessor, right? So you will gain dollars, but who will you become? What will you become? You will become somebody whose life is taken away from you, whose morality, whose humanity, whatever word you want to use. Here we have an interesting verse. We go to a different sort of part of this chapter. Chochmat bachutz tarona, barchovot titain kola. Wisdom cries aloud in the streets, raises her voice in the squares. You can read it back to sort of what was said before, those who are evil, who are plotting in the streets to take advantage. But interestingly, this verse is used in multiple places, sort of in the Talmud and Talmudic stories in different places, as to questions of sort of how one should teach Torah. Is it in the ivory tower? Is it supposed to be hidden? Or is wisdom something that's supposed to be bachutz? It's in the streets. The wisdom that we teach, the Torah that we teach, is supposed to help, the average ordinary person, not just the great scholar who's sitting in yeshiva, who's learning all day and all night. And also it's supposed to be relevant, bachutz. It's supposed to be relevant to everybody. That's the major way of reading this verse. The rabbis at certain places in the Talmud try to sort of bring it back, and they say, no. It says chochmat bachutz taroni. Yes, wisdom cries aloud in the streets, but where do you sell diamonds? Do you sell diamonds bachutz? No, you have to go into Tiffany's and into, if you want to get the best diamonds, right? They lock the door and they bring you into the greatest vault or whatever. But generally on this surface, the verse seems to tell you that the chokhmah of Shlomo here, the chokhmah of Torah, if you want to understand it in that, is not just general chokhmah, but chokhmah of Torah is something that needs to be in the streets, something that needs to be relevant for all. Berosh homio tikra, b'fitchei sha'arim ba'ir amareha tomer. At the head of the busy streets, wisdom calls. At the entrance of the gates in the city, she speaks out. This is what I mentioned earlier. So much, of course, we know the Torah, the ancient world, male-dominated. Here, wisdom, which is this female, it's in the female form, like in the last word in verse 21 is tomer, which is she speaks out. Wisdom is being personified, this wise woman, again, kind of like the Greek sort of idea of Sophia, of this wisdom. Continuing verse 22, Ad matai pitayim te'avu peti v'leitzim latzon chamdu lahem uchsiglim. How long will you simple ones love simplicity? You scoffers, be eager to scoff and to make fun. You dull ones, you foolish ones, how long will you hate knowledge? Tashuvu letochachti, hine abi'a lachem ruchi odia divarai etchem. You don't listen to my rebuke. And now I'll tell you what you need to hear and let you know my thoughts. Ya'an karati vatima enu. Natiti yadi v'ein makshiv. You refused when I called, so I didn't listen and you didn't listen when I extended my hand. Vatifra'u kolatzati v'tochachti lo avitem. You spurned my advice. You wouldn't hear my rebuke. Gamani be'eidchem eschak el ag bevo pachtechem. I will laugh when, right on the day of Be'etchem, the day of your calamity, the day of your suffering, I will mock you, I will laugh when terror comes upon you. Bivo kishoah pachtechem ve'etchem kisufa ye'ata bavo alechem tsara vitzuka. Obviously a word we read in the post-Holocaust world. This verse 27, when terror comes like a disaster and calamity arrives like a whirlwind, when trouble and distress come upon you. The word shoah there, hard not to read it and to think. Azikra uni below ene yishachru nini below yimtsa uni. Then you'll call me, but I will not answer. You will seek me, but I will not find you. Okay, now here, right, so the personification of wisdom, and they're ignoring it, and therefore as a result. But remember, just a few verses ago, what did we put? We put wisdom together with Yirat Hashem, which we'll see in the next verse, in verse 29. We put your wisdom together with staying away from those who are evil, for those who pounce upon the simple, for those who take advantage, fraudulent, terrible behavior. So it's not just wisdom from the sense of raw intelligence, but this has a moral component to it as well. Again, right? It has to be bachutzot. This wisdom has to be in the streets. Could you in verse 29, he explains that, or she explains that, tachat kisanudat virat Adonai lo bachar, because they hated knowledge and did not choose fear of the Lord. So the two are coming together. Lo avu la'atzati na'atsu kol tochachti. You refuse my advice. You disdained all of my rebukes. Vayochlu mipri darkam. We're in verse 31. Umimo atzotehem yisba'u. And therefore, what's going to happen? You're going to eat the fruit of your ways and the fill of their own counsels. You took the bad advice. You didn't listen to Yirat Hashem. You didn't listen to wisdom. And again, we can see this in a sense as sort of the aftermath of that Rechavam decision to listen to his young advisors instead of the older advisors, to continue in a way that is suffering towards Bnei Yisrael, and therefore he's going to suffer as a result. It's not, I think, the only way to read the verse, maybe not even the main way to read the verse, but certainly worth considering. Continuing Pasuk Lamed Bet, Ki mishuvat pityam tahargeim, v'shalvat ksilim ta'abdeim. The tranquility of the simple will kill them, and the complacency of the dull, of the fools, will destroy them. V'shol me'ali yishkon betach, v'sha'anan bipachad ra'ah. But he who listens to me will dwell in safety, untroubled by misfortune. So again, when we think about and we look at this chapter, it's really a combination. You have to think of the ideas of wisdom together with Yirat Hashem, morality. It's not just simply getting the highest IQ. And thus, this chapter, if you read this book, you won't end up like that. You won't end up going down this foolish road. You'll continue down the right road, a road that will lead to success, to shrewdness, but also to kindness and goodness. And that is the advice upon which Shlomo begins this book of Mishlei, advice that hopefully will not just be limited to those in the Beit Midrash, but will spread all over the world on each and every street.